spot of Asia, Hong Kong, a metropolis at a dramatic crossroads with a population of 6 million, not only making per capita newspaper readership in the world. It's a city with a staggering 60 daily newspapers, more than enough you would think. But now Hong Kong has a new and very different one.
South China Morning Post morning.
The South China Morning Post, it's the oldest English language newspaper in Hong Kong. It's also the first newspaper in the world to have an edition specifically for people who've never had an opportunity to read a daily newspaper before. Every morning at 7:30, Bob Howarth and trainee journalist Linda Chung hit the headlines on the Post's editorial computer network. Every news story, every feature article and service from that day's edition is stored here.
Right, we'll slap that in. What we're doing here today is gathering 25 to 30,000 words of text out of our computer system. This is copy that's already been set and printed, and we're running programs on several terminals to clean that text up, basically, make it presentable in a clean form. And we're gathering that for a further process to transmit the Braille Post.
And that's the name of this newest daily, the Braille Post. Of course, it's in a form here that cannot be utilised unless a reader can see. At the same time as the editorial selection process, Fred Leung is getting to work. He hasn't been able to see since he fell onto a pair of chopsticks as a child. He's the production centre supervisor at the Hong Kong Society for the Blind. At the South China Morning Post, Linda, who had the idea of a daily newspaper for blind people, is transferring the copy to a personal computer set up as an electronic bulletin board. Apart from the main local and international news, it contains race tips, letters to the editor, and the chess column. Ready for transmission, all that's needed now is a phone call to Fred.
Fred, I'm speaking.
Fred, Bob, how are you, mate?
Okay.
We're ready to roll.
Good. We'll talk to you later.
The copy is sent to the Blind Society at high speed, taking just a few minutes. It's then automatically unpacked or downloaded onto a floppy disk, programmed to convert the written text into Braille.
This is what you see on the screen, raw data from the South China Morning Post computer system.
So we're still in English, so the next step is...
We're still in English, and now the contents are exactly the same, but this is Braille or Braille images on the screen.
The information on the disc is then sent on for printing on what's called an interpoint embosser. It produces raised dot Braille text on both sides of the paper at a rate of 800 pages an hour. The editorial content on these pages is also available on floppy disk to be read by using a tactile plastic plate attached to a Braille keyboard. And while television, radio and the talking book still have their place for the blind, the daily detail given by these embossed words is providing them with more scope and the chance to learn.
Especially in our community where English is not our mother tongue for most people anyway, this would be very useful. Actually, some of our readers learn English by reading the Braille Post.
So far, the Braille Post is available to about 400 blind readers every day, so there's no need for a sophisticated circulation department. What started out as the last edition of the South China Morning Post is delivered in the afternoon as the Braille Post, sometimes by the only editor in the world who cannot read his own newspaper.
There you go, fellas, the latest edition.
對於失明人嚟講咧，呢一部特字機咧就好重要嘅。咁佢哋自己可以操作啦。咁另外咧就可以打一啲佢哋一啲特字嘅出嚟咧，咁變咗佢哋咧就可以讀啦。咁其實咧對於呢啲特字機嗰個操作過程係點樣咧？我哋今朝早咧請到梁文安先生同埋梁周田先生上嚟咧同我哋講講嘅。早晨。係早晨。阿 Fred 早晨嚇。早晨。梁博士早晨嚇。咁 咁啊頭先已經提過啦，呢部特字機我相信呢各位觀眾咧比較有興趣想知道啊，到底嗰個特字機嘅結構係點樣啊 Fred？
就基本上即係架特字機咧就係好簡單嘅，大家睇到個設計咧嚇，就譬如呢度嚟講咧就係佢嘅鍵盤啦，
鍵盤喺呢個部位，
只係得7個掣嘅啫，因為點解？
或者我調轉俾各位觀眾睇睇個鍵盤先啊。嗱個鍵盤就係呢度啦，總共係7個掣。
個鍵盤主要係7個掣，咁點解咧？就係因為特字咧係用6點嘅原理嘅，咁一個掣咧就係負責做1點，所以呢度6個掣啦。咁呢個咧就係空格嘅掣嚟嘅，
空格掣嚟嘅，
即係打字機嘅 space bar 啦。
哦，明白。好。我調翻轉啊。咁喺操作上面又係點樣咧？
操作上面咧就基本上嗱呢度咧就係上紙㗎啦，咁我哋可以即係拎出嚟睇啦嚇。
同打字機嘅原理差唔多。
差唔多㗎嚇。咁呢個咧就係佢嘅 emboss head 嚟嘅，所謂即係嗰啲字咧，實際上咧就喺呢度下邊咧就有6支針咁樣篤上嚟。
篤上嚟。
嚇，咁咧就會做一啲特字出嚟嘅。譬如如果我而家咁大家觀眾就唔知見唔見啦，但係如果我哋摸落去咧，就會係有即係一紮即係凸起嘅點嘅。咁因為6點咧就有唔同嘅方位啦，譬如好似左邊上角啦、中間啦、下邊啦、右邊咧又係上中下咁有6點。咁譬如嗰啲字母咧就係用即係唔同嘅方面嚟組成嘅，譬如舉個例咧嚇，我哋特字嘅英文字母 A 咁咧，左上角嗰點。B 咧就係左上中咁啦 ，C 咧就左上右上之類咁樣咧就可以變到即係唔同嘅符號出嚟咯。
哦咁樣嘅。呢個就係比較傳統啲嘅特字機啊，咁但係而家已經發展到即係電腦化啦。咁不如梁博士同我哋講下，即係電腦化方面嘅情況係點樣？
係，咁就即係傳統嘅特字機咧，就係一本特字書上嚟咧係比較係費事啦。係啊。咁同埋咧就係即係譬如我打錯咗啲嘢啦，咁要改咧就好困難嚇。咁通常即係如果一張紙上面你打錯咗兩三個字咧，就嗰張紙要抌咗佢。
成張紙唔要得。
要再做過，因為即係如果做副本嘅時間咧，就嗰個質素咧就會比較係差嘅。係。嚇。咁而家就即係我哋開始咧就係應用咗電腦啦，咁我哋就即係即係其實一啲普通嘅電腦，咁我哋係
普通嘅電腦嘅啫，唔同之處喺邊咧？
冇咩唔同嘅，咁就即係只不過裏邊咧，我哋就係放入咗一啲嘅軟件咧，呢個程式，咁就呢啲程式咧就係能夠將我哋好似平時打字咁樣啦，我將一啲嘅文字打咗入去咧，咁佢自然間咧就係能夠將佢翻譯成為特字咁樣嘅。
咁啊一啲軟件等入去啦，咁啊一副都係普通嘅電腦，但係變咗佢出嚟嗰個printer 咧就係有唔同嘅，係咪？
有少少唔同啦，嗱咁就大家睇到畫面上邊咧，我哋同事就係即係正在操作緊嗰部電腦啦，咁佢係可以將一啲課文啊或者一啲文件咧就打入去電腦裏邊。咁左手邊咧就係一架特字嘅印字機嚟嘅。而右手邊咧就係一個普通嘅印字機啦。
係普通嘅。
咁而家有個好處咧，就係即係我哋能夠將任何嘅一啲文件咧打咗入去個電腦裏邊。咁經過呢個程式嘅處理咧，佢即時咧就係可以即係印出普通嘅印刷字啦。咁亦都係同呢個就係即係普通嘅印字機咧，佢係可以即係好似平時咁樣印字出嚟。咁喺左手邊咧嚇。咁另外一部咧，嗰個係即係特字嘅印字機啦。
特字印字機即係頭先我哋睇過喺左邊嗰一部啦。
係啦，咁咧就即係嗱呢一部咧就係一個特字嘅印字機啦，咁係好高速咁樣啦，可以就係即係將啲特字係印出嚟嘅。通常佢係7秒鐘嘅時間咧，就係完成印1頁嘅特字嘅。咁就即係變咗一個失明人咧，係而家係能夠係好方便咁同呢個即係視力健全嘅人士咧，係能夠係喺書寫方面咧係更加容易咁樣溝通到嘅。
即係我有一個問題就係，譬如我本身係唔識呢個特字嘅。咁但係咧，我如果係識打普通嘅電腦，我一樣可以打到出嚟。
冇錯啦，
呢部電腦，
即係
係咪啊？
以前你都講咧，就譬如話有啲人有興趣想做義工，有啲失明嘅學生佢需要一啲嘅特字嘅課本嚟到上堂喎。咁點樣做俾佢咧？咁我首先就要自己學特字。咁特字好似係一個語言咁，亦都係需要學習啦。咁通常係需要學3個月至半年嘅時間，先至可以係即係掌握到嗰個。變
咗麻煩啲啦，比以前做義工嚇。
咁就即係呢個係只係 學到個基本嘅原理啫。如果你要應用得好咧，就要加多1、2年內先得嘅通常。
呢方面我諗啊 Fred 啊，我就要問下你啊，即係你自己最初學呢個特字咧，你嗰個學習過程係點樣嘅？
哦，我哋學習咧就可能同即係譬如果頭先講阿梁博士講個教義工嗰個咧有少少唔同嘅，因為我哋學咧就係即係諗住一定要用嘅嘛，即係所謂講俗啲即係搏晒命去學。如果義工咧就唔係啊，義工嗰啲就係即係佢可能一日都係得或者半個鐘頭咁樣去學，或者1個鐘頭咁樣去練啫。咁所以變咗就耐好多。咁如果講翻我哋自己就，而且仲有就係，就算失明人本身嚟講咧。都係你知啦，一樣米養百樣人，都有好多種嘅，有啲學得快，啲學得慢嚇。咁如果我自己嚟講就唔係學得好耐嘅啫。
你幾多歲開始學嘅？
我嗰陣時就幾多歲？應該係8歲到啦。8歲左右。咁就應該我記得唔知有冇錯啦嚇，就學1個月到就得㗎啦。即係我哋首先學中文特字先嘅。中文咧就大家可能會有一個即係疑問，咦？我漢字即係咁多個字嚇，幾千個上面嗰度。你話
我哋都要學好耐。
係啊，但係我哋特字咧就係拼音嘅，即係譬如好似早咁咧嚇，我哋有一個即係前音咧，即係等於英文嘅 consonant 咁啦嚇，就 G 咁啦嚇，就用一個後音咧，即係等於英文嘅響音啦，就 O 咁 ，G-O 咪租咯，咁呢個租屋先係啫嚇。咁但係咧仲有一個星號嘅。即係因為我哋有9聲啊嘛，咁咧就加多個星號嚟，係第2聲咁樣，早咁就係早晨嘅早啦。所以變咗就係即係如果係同音，但係如果唔同意義嗰啲咧，都會係即係同一個字嘅喺廣州話嘅特字嚟講。即係譬如好似舉個例，1、2、3、4、6、7、8、9、10嗰個10，同埋執拾嗰個10，喺你哋嘅寫法唔同啊。
係啊。
但係如果喺廣州話特字咧就係一樣。即係一樣拼
方面係一樣嘅。英文方面咧？
英文咧就基本上佢都係用 A、B、C、D 啊。咁但係因為為咗即係慳位同埋即係增加呢個閱讀嘅速度起見咧，就一啲普通嘅字母組合嚇，譬如好似 A-T-I-O-N 啊，或者S-I-O-N 嗰啲，即係經常都要用㗎啦。係。咁咧就有啲簡寫啦，所謂就寫1、2個符號咧，就代表晒成組字㗎。
咁你即係你嘅學習時間比較快啊，咁有啲比較慢一啲啊。咁咧就譬如而家咁咧，你都可以即係隨時拿起本特字書咧，就全本都睇晒㗎啦。
可以嘅。嗱，我哋今日咧就帶咗即係2種書嚟啦。咁咧嗱呢種咧就係
呢本係咩嚟先？
嗱呢本咧大家睇，好多人都中意睇㗎嚇。《紅樓夢》嚟嘅。《
紅樓夢》嚟㗎呢本。原來呢本係《紅樓夢》嚟㗎。
其中嘅一卷嚟嘅。
其中
嘅一卷係啦。
嗱，我哋要補充嘅就係因為喺特字嚟講咧，佢係凸起咗啦嚇。咁所以咧就同埋咧係要個 size 係大嗰啲嘅。如果唔係咧，就摸嚟好似一粒米咁咧，分唔到究竟即係邊點係邊樣嘢㗎。咁所以咧就整體嚟講咧，一本特字書咧就係會係厚啲嘅。嗱，譬如呢本《紅樓夢》咧就叫做。等我表演讀俾大家睇下嚇。我平時唔係咁讀嘅，不過為咗俾大家睇咧，就而家要即係調轉嚟讀。咁佢話咧就係《紅樓夢》啦，就係調轉咗唔知下冊。咁就呢度寫住咧係經濟版添。咁經濟版即係平啲嘅，可能即係下薄啲啊，薄裝啦嚇。咁但係咧都要分成12本咁厚嘅書㗎啦。就呢個咧就係第9本嚟嘅啫，即係第9冊嚟嘅。
睇佢質地咧，啲唔係紙嚟嘅。
冇錯，呢啲就係一種即係特製嘅膠紙。因為咧呢個咧係用即係傳統嘅方法做嘅。傳統方法就係話，首先咧就係要用即係呢架特字機啦嚇，就打咗一支咁嘅普通嘅
紙
白紙，跟住咧就擠落去一架特別嘅即係複印機嗰度。咁咧就即係下邊咧就鋪呢張所謂master page 落去啦。然之後佢嘅上邊咧就擠一張呢啲咁嘅膠紙落去。咁於是咧嗰個複印機咧就會將下邊嗰啲嘢咧就係印落去個膠紙嗰度嘅。
咁啊另外帶咗一本真係都好特別嘅，梁博士同大家介紹下啦嚇，就係基本法嚟嘅。
係，咁咧就呢個係。
佢就係傳統啲紙張啦，係咪咧？
應該調轉講，因為咧就傳統嘅紙張咧就即係如果要做 copy 咧，就係要用膠片啦。咁呢一本嘅基本法嘅徵求意見稿咧，我哋就係用電腦做嘅。咁電腦做出嚟咧就係用呢一種嘅電腦紙啦，就比較普通嘅電腦紙係厚一啲。咁譬如話嗰個基本法草稿啦嚇，咁薄薄幾十頁一本書仔啦，咁做成咗特字之後咧就變成3本。呢個係即係卷一嚟嘅啫，總共咧就係有3卷嘅。咁咧就即係佔咗多好多嘅地方嘅。
咁你哋盲人輔導會咧都工作都好繁重㗎喎。
就即係香港嚟講咧，嗰個特字嘅需求係幾大嘅。咁同埋即係做特字書咧，需要嘅時間係相當長。譬如話做一本普通嘅教科書咁啦嚇，咁一個普通嘅學生，佢老師話需要一本書喎，佢即時去書局俾幾十蚊就可以。
我相信你哋有好大程度嘅需要就係義工方面啊，係咪？
冇錯，就因為我哋嘅中央特字製作中心裏邊咧。就亦都我哋有好多嘅失明嘅同事嘅，咁即係我哋失明嘅同事亦都係參與呢個特字書嘅製作。
我相信如果各位有興趣，可以即係參與就係呢一項嘅義工工作啦。咁有個電話查詢嘅，就係九龍嘅電話嚟㗎，係咪？係，就我哋嘅電話咧就係九龍嘅7788-332啦。冇錯啦，咁相信咧，如果大家有興趣嘅話咧，可以就係參與呢個義工嘅行列。今次出時間都係啦，好多謝晒你阿 Fred 嚇，多謝晒你，多謝晒，多謝晒。咁咧。
聽清楚啲，
服務親切至誠。
聽到啦，2支。
係香港電燈公司一貫嘅承諾。
電費單啊，幾好聽啊，咩嚟㗎？
柴可夫斯基啊。
而提供自電費單，更令所有客戶都感受到我哋無微不至嘅照顧。
哇！呢樣咩樂器啊？你聽唔聽得出有幾多支長笛啊？聽清楚啲。
At Hong Kong Electric,
聽到啦，2支。
we take our responsibility to customers very
電費
seriously.
單啊，幾好聽啊，咩嚟㗎？
柴可夫斯基啊。
Providing bills in Braille is just one way to make sure all our customers feel it.
哇！呢樣咩樂器啊
TVB reporter Michelle spoke with the centre's supervisor, Mr. Frank Leung.
Could you introduce us on how the blind use the Opticon and the CCTV?
The Opticon is an abbreviation for optical to tactile converter. The Opticon is a device which a blind person can use to read any printed page. As you can see, that a blind person scans with its camera on a line of print, and then this camera will pick up the images and transmit it to the main body of the device, and then this device would convert the images into a tactile format, which a blind person can use his index finger normally to distinguish the various images. For example, if it's a capital A, then the blind person with his index finger, he can feel a vibrating in very high frequency, a triangle with a bar across it, okay? So the other device that you just mentioned is a CCTV magnifying system, which is a television-like device, and it could magnify a print image up to 64 times, depending on which model you use. So with this magnification, a person with some residual vision could read very easily because it has been magnified.
What is a talking book and what are the procedures in making it?
Yes, this probably is a new term for most spectators. Since a blind person cannot read a standard printed book, and there are so many interest books for people to read nowadays, especially, for example, like my children. They even have a news paper for children, yeah? And so we have developed something called a talking book, which is in fact a book read onto tape word by word, except most punctuations like commas and full stops that we don't read. Sometimes we do even have to read brackets and of course the quotation marks. So in every sense it's word by word. So after listening to it, a blind person can achieve the effect of having read the book himself. Most of our talking books are read by volunteer readers, and they read so naturally. So even though a blind person may listen to it for a few hours straight, he will not feel boring because of the reading. Okay, and the technique or procedures for producing it is there are two different kinds of ways of producing a talking book, because some volunteers who are very interested and who are willing to help us, but they have to work or study in school during daytime or office hours, so that they can't come to our office or our recording studio. So these people would record at their homes using their own cassette recorders, and then these cassette tapes are returned to us. We have talking book production officers to run the tapes over again, record them, and cut out the unnecessary noises. For example, a dog may bark in between sentences, and then these people would record the sentences again. Okay, but of course, if the background noise which goes behind the recording itself, the reading itself, this cannot be cut away. We are talking about only noises in between sentences. And of course, there are other kinds of volunteers who could come to our recording studios during office hours. And of course, for their reading, the effect would be much better because it's produced under recording environment. And our talking book production officer would manipulate the recording systems for the reader.
And that's Michelle Mao talking to the supervisor of the Centralized Braille Production Center, Mr. Frank Lowe.
EIC bureaucratic 用其判斷力的官僚。
呢啲並唔係普通嘅錄音帶，裏邊係錄咗全本牛津現代高級英漢嘅雙解詞典，係世界第一部俾失明人士使用嘅錄音詞典。錄製呢套詞典嘅香港盲人輔導會，佢哋嘅中央特自製作中心主任梁周田話：呢套詞典對失明人士係幫助好大。
呢本字典呢係第一次令到盲人呢係可以好隨便咁樣呢，就係拎住一本字典由一笪地方去到另外一笪地方，因為只係一個袋咧就裝晒。以前呢就一本特字嘅字典呢係即係10幾尺厚。差唔多要一架車咧，先至可以將佢係搬到去另外一個地方。
目前香港只係大約有20套呢啲詞典。香港盲人輔導會遲啲係會再錄製多啲呢種詞典，俾全港14000個失明人士使用。由於每套錄音詞典有成68盒4聲軌錄音帶，再加埋特製嘅4聲軌錄音機，每套就要成2000幾蚊。由於價錢並唔平，香港盲人輔導會係決定為購買呢套詞典嘅失明人士提供資助。無線電視記者徐月娥報導。
Executive, like many people in the territory, except he's completely blind. He is the supervisor of the Centralized Braille Production Center, which provides all the Braille materials in Hong Kong.
We have to produce, first of all, the textbooks or academic-oriented reference materials for the students in the schools. And then we could produce some other materials which might be needed by, say, those working blind persons, or the books which the library the Braille Library would like to have. And of course, we have to produce any policy papers, like white papers or green papers, which the government, various government departments might release from time to time.
The Braille Production Center, which is subvented by the Education Department, tries to meet an annual demand of about 110,000 master Braille sheets. Mr. Leung is a graduate of the Ebenezer School and Home for the Blind, and the skills he learned there have proven very useful on the job. The VersaBraille word processor is a permanent fixture on his desk and a tool he uses often to communicate in Braille or in print.
You could enter...
But now he has more gadgetry which are not available at Ebenezer. This microcomputer can be programmed to dial numbers and store information.
Phone number, file, voltage, start of test, start marker test, end of test, end marker test, ARE, start of test, hello, Mr. March, how are you?
Another computer is used to print out Braille text on an embosser. For duplicating Braille graphs and diagrams, a machine called the thermoform actually melts a plastic sheet to the form of the diagram or graph. Since Mr. Leung is totally blind, he relies completely on Braille in his work. It has been said that the eyes are the gateway to the soul, but for the blind, the gateway is the finger. Braille was invented in the 19th century by a blind Frenchman named Louis Braille. For the seeing population, Braille might seem an unusual and difficult form of communication to learn, but the essential premise is simple.
It's basically a system of 6 dots, which you can see. There are 3 dots on the left-hand side and 3 on the right-hand side, and with the different location of dots, we can form a total of 64 completely different in shape symbols, okay? For example, the letter A, it's the top left dot, and B is top left and middle, and C is top left and right, top right dots, etc.
Using Braille for the 26-letter English alphabet may be simple enough, but what about the thousands of Chinese characters?
In Braille, we adopt the phonetic system as well. In other words, we also spell a Chinese word like English. Of course, we would have our own alphabet. We don't use the English alphabet, but the principle is essentially the same. For example, we have in each word we have 3 components, one being the consonant, and the other is a vowel, and then the third, of course, would be a tone mark.
There are various languages in Braille.
We know that there are English Braille, German Braille, French Braille, Russian Braille, and Chinese Braille, Japanese Braille. Even in Chinese Braille, you have Cantonese Braille and Mandarin Braille.
Besides producing Braille material, Mr. Leung's center also has a library of over 3,800 Braille books and a talking book section for the visually disabled who do not know Braille.
Talking book is a book recorded word by word onto a tape, so that after listening to it, a blind person is like he has read the book himself. So it's an alternative to Braille book in terms of a visually disabled person. So it takes less time to produce a talking book than a Braille book.
At the close of each workday, Mr. Leung ventures home by himself, armed only with his cane and a mental image of the journey. Even for sighted people in Hong Kong, crossing a busy intersection can be intimidating. Mr. Leung says his trips have been facilitated by special stoplights installed a few years ago at many intersections. A clicking noise connected to the light signals the blind person when to cross. Rapid clicking means it's safe to go. It took Mr. Leung a week, with the help of a friend, to become familiar with the maze of obstacles en route home from his office, including Hong Kong's public transport system.
I take the MTR, and I like it very much, you know. Before I, let me say, I didn't have to take the MTR before. I took the buses, and at that time, I thought it was very difficult for a blind person to travel on an MTR. But since I had to take it, then I realized it's the best mode of transport that a blind person can have. Because previously, you know, the bus stops in Hong Kong, one stop for many different routes, and I always had to ask which one was the bus that I needed. But for an MTR, this never happened. And also, the names of the stations are announced. That's very good. Yeah.
The seeing world is often blind to the capabilities of the visually disabled. But with fine examples like Mr. Leung, that soon may be changing.
範圍就擴闊咗好多啦。錄音圖書館喺盲人輔導會屬下一個部門，負責人就係梁周田先生。由於佢亦都係失明人士，所以就深切了解到喺呢一方面嘅重要。
錄音圖書咧就個製作成本就好輕嘅，比較喺特字嚟講，咁同埋個時間咧又係短好多嘅。咁仲有咧就有好多人咧，佢年紀大先睇唔見咧。 特字對於佢唔一定適合佢，因為佢要去學過一門新嘅嘢啊。咁錄音就而家啲錄音機就好簡單嘅，操作起上嚟好容易嘅，咁所以就應該好多人啱用。
香港盲人輔導會錄音圖書館錄音發行。
梁周田先生自小失明，喺盲人學校畢業之後就攞到獎學金遠赴美國，修讀一項職業訓練課程，就係鋼琴調音同埋修理。 學成之後，就將呢一種技術帶返香港，提高失明人士就業嘅機會。78年至到79年間，佢喺盲人輔導會任職計劃推廣幹事，意識到科技產品對盲人嘅重要性，於是乎就成立咗失明人士用具中心，積極引進輔助儀器，提高失明人士喺生活同埋職業上邊嘅技能。基於上述嘅種種貢獻。 佢喺82年當選咗10大傑出青年之一。佢當選之後，究竟有咩感想呢？
喺一般人心目中咧，就即係作為一個傑出嘅人士咧，喺佢哋對失明人嘅睇法啊、態度啊嗰啲咧就有啲幫助。咁所以有時我都從呢個即係實際嘅立場去睇咧，就覺得作為傑出青年咧，對傷殘人士咧可能有啲好處咯。
至於佢自己又係點樣克服障礙去做咁多嘢嘅呢？
喺我自己嚟計就冇乜特別嘅啫，我唔需要即係點樣刻意去或者克服啲問題啊咩？即係我嚟講就好自然一樣都，可能即係我比較即係自信心強啊，同埋又樂觀啊。
因為卓越貢獻而得到榮譽，當然係值得慶幸啦。但係傷殘人士為同道中人策劃同埋提供活動，最主要就係希望能夠融入社會同埋發揮潛能為大前提嘅。
電視同埋收音機，邱文華同大家介紹下呢份報紙啊。
本港市面最近發現大批88年版匯豐銀行的千元硬偽鈔。
喺7年前，本港已經有英文特字報紙，而家中文嘅特字報終於出現。對於大部分唔識英文嘅失明人士嚟講，唔使好似以前咁要靠電視同收音機，而家鍾意幾時睇都得。
好多新聞我哋可以睇到啦，譬如話電視啊，或者係收音機新聞咧，咁就唔係咁全面性啊，同埋或者係撮要嘅。咁如果係睇報紙啊，咁我哋就知道好多嘢咯。
份特字報係盲人輔導會同一份報紙合辦嘅，下個星期1就正式出版。因為中文特報紙呢，每一版只可以印到大約300字到啦，咁所以通常都係抽取每日嘅主要新聞先至印落去嘅啫。咁但係而家透過電腦咧，就可以睇晒成份報紙，除咗廣告之外嘅內容啦。工具啲失明人士一向都係靠呢一個連接電腦嘅特字顯示器。失明人而家仲有得聽添。看不到電腦熒幕上。盲人輔導會話，雖然每份特字報嘅成本淨係紙都2蚊張，但係失明人士訂閱仲平過大家喺街買報紙。無線電視記者邱文華報導。
印尼有團體認為應該加強呢方面嘅宣傳。由梁麗娟報導。
現時市民喺使用完八達通卡之後，出閘機嘅熒光幕上都會顯示張卡剩返幾多錢。但係對於失明人士嚟講就唔係咁方便，因為就算用晒啲錢，張卡都唔會沒收。失明人士好難知道幾時需要補充票價。其實喺設計八達通卡嘅時候都有考慮過呢個問題，所以就用唔同聲音表達張卡出現唔同問題，方便失明人士。好似呢一聲就表示張卡有問題入唔到閘，而呢一聲就顯示張卡嘅票值已經用晒，需要加錢。雖然八達通系統已經用咗2個禮拜，但係就好少呢方面嘅宣傳。有盲人團體話，較早時曾經有講座教失明人士點樣用八達通卡，但係出席嘅只有100幾人，而全港就有超過15000個失明人士。有關嘅公共交通機構應該加強宣傳。
應該可以宣傳多啲就好啲啦。點解？因為會多啲人知道，即係譬如啱講嗰3種聲嘅意思係咩嘢啊咁樣。
有線電視記者梁麗娟報導。
咁地鐵公司就話，佢哋較早前呢已經為盲人輔導會安排咗一次課程，佢哋點樣使用八達通卡，而且佢哋亦都應輔導會嘅要求，將課程製作成錄音帶，方便失明人士嚟聽㗎。發言人又話，佢哋暫時未有計劃再舉辦類似嘅活動，不過如果有要求嘅話呢，佢哋會再舉辦有關嘅課程㗎。咁政府話。